serving you a dose of wisdom with humor and a dash of radiance. Welcome to Biscuits and Sunshine with your hosts, Callie and Landra. Hey y'all, this is Biscuits and Sunshine. We're so excited to have you here today. I'm Callie.
And I'm Landra. It makes me hella happy to have you here with us. It's nice to be back together for our second episode. Today we continue to share a bit more about ourselves and how this podcast came to be.
By this point, you might be wondering about the name Biscuits and Sunshine. We'll share details in a later episode, but know that the name represents both of us and our upbringings and a hallmark of both of our personalities. Landra came up with a name, almost jokingly, and it is so perfect in my opinion.
Oh, that is such a tease. The name and how it captures us both is definitely worth a full episode. But what I can tell you is that the Biscuits and Sunshine will be full of moments of reflection and discovery as we discuss what it means to live from a place of authenticity. We created this podcast because we both love our conversations and we felt like it would resonate with other women too.
So true. Everything about this friendship, if I do say so myself, everything is authentic. And as such, creating a podcast was such an organic decision born partially out of a shared desire to create more creativity and also more community in our lives.
Creativity and community, two things that seem to really bind us together. Our friendship is rooted in these shared things, and I think both of us have used creativity and community as guiding stars in a way really throughout our lives.
That's such a great transition, Landra, into our topic today, how we got here. Of course, we'll address the fact that we're both living in Athens, Greece, which is random and yet not so random. But we'll also talk about how we got to where we are in our lives, career-wise, emotionally, holistically. But let's address the geography question first.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, Landra, how did you get to Greece?
Oh my gosh. Well, that is a question that begins back in 2007.
Bloop, 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 bloop.
I mean, I wouldn't have said that when I first decided to move here, but then after moving here and really thinking about it. So picture it, 2007. I am working in retail. I have either still in grad school or almost finishing grad school. Regardless, I was in a place of just like not loving my life. And I had some girlfriends that were like, come on, we're going on a trip to Greece. You should come with us. And I'm like, no. I have no time. I have no money. And my friend's like, no, seriously, girl, you are sad.
Oh,
Just come with us. And so I'm like, it sounds funny, right? I'm like, fine, I'll go to Greece.
twist my arm. But really, they did have to twist your arm.
Kinda, yeah. So I get here and oh my God, I just can't tell you, I mean, of course, now knowing Greece over the years, the food, the sea, just all of it, and this was also, I will say, and I will be dating myself, the book I brought along with me, Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so there was so much that resonated. I was sad in my life. And so being in beautiful Greece and just reading about this book that inspired me to be like, oh my God, it really was like, girl, you need to take control of your life. You need to think about where do you want to be going? Like kind of be, take charge. So that's the backdrop, right, for that. So that happens in 2007. So in many ways, I was like, oh my God, that time in Greece was just kind of transformational. And like, it just kind of woke me up. So, life goes on. I'm somebody that loves to travel. So I've been to many places. I lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina for a bit. I moved to Canada. So I'm not like a stranger to like living other places. I kind of love it. It excites me. So there's that background. Then I meet this guy who happens to be Greek American. And we had been together now over 10 years, but before we decided to move to Greece, it was probably around year, I don't even know, I lose track now, 7, somewhere around there. And it wasn't like this thing of like, he's like, let's go back to Greece. It just, the pandemic was happening. And even before the pandemic, I will say, he said, he's a musician. He's like, it'd be really cool to like do more music and move to Europe. And I was like, oh my God, you have 2 passports. I'm married to you. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
So and it just was kind of like one thing unfolded after another. We didn't think it was going to be Athens. We thought it would be maybe Amsterdam, maybe Berlin, somewhere in Europe.
Somewhere maybe a little bit more musically inclined, someplace that people actually
More
stop for
centrally
concerts.
located because
Yeah.
let's not lie, Greece is, like, far
Super
over.
far. No one ever comes here in terms of concerts.
Right, and I'm from California, so that's even feels, like, farther from, like, my original home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just one thing unfolded after another, and then, we decided Athens is where it's at, and I couldn't be happier. It is a really, just a really cool space to be in. Not only, like I mentioned, the food, the culture, the people, but also, yeah, just so diverse. There's so much going on in this big city.
I love that. And you guys moved 2021, yeah?
Yeah, April 1st, we arrived.
Were your friends like, what a joke when you said we were leaving? Like April Fools.
No, I know, they were like, "Of course you are,"
Ha! That's
because they
good
knew, like,
friends.
yeah, the kind of the international flair that I have, but, no, but when I said the date, I was like, "And it's no joke."
Ha! Brunch. I actually am really grateful for your move to Athens, partly selfishly because then we got to meet. And it's so weird to me. We come from the same country and yet we are living on opposite sides of it. And I don't know if we would have ever met if we both didn't make the decision to move to Athens.
Mm.
Right?
I kinda don't feel like we
Oh
would've.
no. No,
Yeah,
not at
it was
all.
it was in the stars for us to
It was
both come here
written.
independently and to meet here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so tell us your story. How did you end up here in Athens, Greece?
Oh,
Calliope?
good point. My journey, I know 2007 feels like a long time ago. Like my desire to move to Greece started like way before that because my mom is Greek, my dad's American. And so growing up in the South, I always felt slightly different, always. Greek Orthodox, we speak Greek at home. People always ask me, "Oh, do you worship Zeus?" Like even as a young kid. I remember in kindergarten, we had to stand up in the class and say our name, kind of practicing this memory, like what's your address? Where do you go to church? Because you have to remember Alabama is like the buckle of the Bible Belt. And so we had to say, and I said, my name is Callie. I live at this address and I'm Greek Orthodox. And my teacher, I went to an incredible school. My teacher asks, "Oh, honey, is that Jewish?" It's just being different in the South, you feel different. And so I always felt very Greek. I always felt very Greek and I was always very proud to be Greek. And so I had these dreams. I also, too, felt like my life was destined to be lived on two continents. I feel like it was so much a part of my identity. So when the pandemic hit and I'm working from home, I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do this from anywhere. Sitting in my house in Atlanta, Georgia by myself. And I think, nah. Actually, I had a friend. I was really unhappy, as most of us were during the pandemic, and
Mm.
applying for jobs, even though I liked the job that I currently had. I didn't get this one I really wanted. And my friend at the time said, "What happened to moving abroad? It's the one thing since I've known you." And we met in college. It's the one thing you've always talked about is living in Greece and like traveling and doing all these things abroad. What happened to that? And for whatever reason, in that moment, 2 days later, I decided I'm picking up, I'm changing my life, and I'm moving. I called my parents and I said, "Guys, I'm moving to Greece. I know I just bought a house a year ago, but I'm moving to Greece." And things kind of unfolded. For me, I got a job in Greece right after graduating in 2009 from university. And for one reason or another, I didn't take it. I was dating someone, I had another job offer. Well, when I look back on it with the perspective I have now, I was just scared. I was just
Mm.
scared to step outside the stream of life and go against the current. All my friends were going to grad school, they were getting jobs, and I was scared. But I'm really grateful I didn't come in 2009. I'm
Mm.
really glad that I had this decade of experience under my belt because I think moving now in 2021 um, was such a better decision for me. Such a better decision. I'm really able to embrace this decision and living here and everything that comes with it from a much healthier place than I think when I was 21. For me, looking back on like these two opportunities to move abroad, I'm so glad I didn't make that decision because it has exponentially impacted my life. When I look back on the decisions I've made and the decisions I haven't made, not coming to Greece in 2009, while it led to a whole bunch of unexpected things, good and bad, I'm really happy to be the person I am today.
Mm.
Is there a moment in your life, a decision you made or you didn't make that now looking back with the perspective you have, you're like, "Oh, that was pivotal for
Yeah.
me."
Yeah, there's a handful of those. I mean, when you said 2009, the one that popped into my head that, like, wasn't on the list that I'm like, "Oh, yes." So, it's interesting, I just like, well, it's funny because people will say, "Oh my god, you're such a risk taker." And I do not consider myself risky at all. Like, I think what I can say is I take calculated risk. I think about it. I kind of sometimes a little bit too much in my head about it. But in 2009, kind of going back on that trajectory of when I was in Greece in 2007, I was like, I'm going to make some changes. Yeah, it took me a few years, but similarly, I had a friend that said, whatever happened, you
Hmm.
love speaking Spanish and you love, like, you always mention living in a Spanish speaking country. Why not do the thing? So I did that in 2009. That's what brought me to Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Crazy.
Had a job, decided to quit my job because I was unhappy
Mhm.
and I needed to, like, essentially find my groove back. And I was like, huh. So I started doing some research and I found a language school in Buenos Aires and I ended up moving there. But when I look back, it's like, I did all the things that maybe one might not have do is like, the economy had been crashing.
Mhm. Big
So
time.
most people are like white knuckling, hold on to that job, and I just was like free falling. Now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that was so risky. But it was all a series of events that I needed that for my soul, for my own happiness, and just to, again, just kind of get back to really the biggest story is like loving myself.
Mhm.
And that made all the difference. That really was a game changer. So that decision to just say, I'm doing it was worth it. Um, The other one I would say too is when I decided to go back to grad school, again, looking what everybody else was doing, people were, I graduated, my undergrad was in business. Everybody was like, oh, get my MBA, right? And yeah, an MBA, no doubt, can definitely do great things for your career. But I was like telling people and started to do all my, graduate studies and stuff around or the entrance test you had to take because I want an MBA to say, I have an MBA.
Mhm.
Not because I loved all those classes,
Yeah.
and so I did say, "Whoa," there was something in me that said, "Okay, I love learning. I do wanna get a master's, but hold on a sec." So I started kinda looking around again, doing a little bit of research, and long story short, I found my way into communication studies, which really aligns a lot more and just really complements my undergrad business degree. But I did it from a place of, if I'm gonna be learning, I wanna do things that, like, I could really apply to all parts of life
Mhm.
and something that really fills me up.
Mhm. It's so interesting you say that. Most of my friends after graduation went into medicine or law, and I thought for sure I was destined for law school. I took the LSAT twice, I applied, I got in, all these things. And there was always this little voice in the back of my head like, "Is this really for you? Like, this is what everyone else is doing, and this is what the path looks like if you wanna be successful in a very traditional sense, but is this really for you?" I'm so glad I listened to that voice inside, because 'cause I'm relatively confident had I become a lawyer, I'd probably still be paying off law school at this point in my
Oh,
life,
yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to experience any of this. Also, I wanna mention the fact that you moved to Buenos Aires in 2009. You moved to Greece in 2021, both when the world's kind of going to you know what.
That's
So it's
exactly.
like your big decisions are made during crises moments. But I think that's a testament to, I don't know, how you approach life and resiliency and the flexibility of mind. Because when most people are trying to pull in and to hoard,
Yeah.
you are reaching out into the world from a place of abundance to think there's more for me out there.
Ooh, I love that you framed it that way. It feels a little bit like Crazy Town and a little bit
Yeah.
like free falling, you know what I mean? Like, what's the worst that can happen? Because, like, and that's usually what I tell myself, oh, you did this before, like, and you figured it out.
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that perspective. But yeah, it's really funny. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, I was talking about decisions. This one is very true, and I think definitely some women might kind of, feel for this. But I would just say when it comes to like romantic relationships,
Ugh.
it's funny when I got out of them, I was never one to go back. I joke about the recycling bin.
Yeah.
As much as like feelings of loneliness can come up or whatever, I never was that person that was like, let me just call them and go. I was like, no, I am not going backwards.
Yeah.
I'm going forward.
Mm.
There's a reason why it ended.
Mhm.
And so there's a part of me, if you ladies that listen here, have we're ever into Sex and the City, I think we can kind of find parts of ourselves in all the different ladies. But what really resonated with me is when the character Miranda said something to the effect of like, "Oh, my exes, I just pretend that they all died."
Mm. Mm. Wise words.
I mean, it sounds morbid, but it's just kind of funny, right? It's just, yeah, I don't know. I'm going forward here.
Yeah, I think loneliness and this desire for comfort make us rethink decisions made in the moment that were the right decisions. Very much so. I like this idea of it should be like, take the trash out, don't let the recycling stay.
I'm not saying all my exes were trash.
I don't say that at all. But when you look at it in this perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. There's a reason why it kind of needed to end. It's like now it's all about going forward. Yeah.
This is not that podcast. We love all people here. This is not that podcast. Men and women, we're all really amazing.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. And thinking about relationships, I'm curious, when you think back, have there been any really big influences on your life and success?
Absolutely, 100%. I would have to say my parents are probably the single most amazing gift I've ever been given. And I did nothing. I did nothing to deserve it. I was just placed with them day one, and that it has exponentially impacted my life for the better. And I realize how privileged I am to have such amazingly strong, caring, wise parents. I don't really look back at my life, I think all people probably, we grow up, we try to assert ourselves, we maybe don't lose connection, but we probably step away from our nuclear family unit and sort of make our way in the world. And, my parents and I haven't always had this sort of rainbows and sunshine relationship, but I know that they were always there for me. And even in the midst of some of these moments where we weren't really speaking, they were still there for me. And I am forever grateful. It's like, I have a big awareness of the fact that I can never repay the things that they've given me, the decisions they made for us when we were little, my brother and I, in terms of the education we received, the trips that we took as kids, the decisions to stay close to our grandparents. When my mom got a job to be an anchor at CNN in Atlanta, my dad could have gone to Nashville to become maybe this big time singer-songwriter. They both made decisions that were very practical for our family that kept us in Alabama close to our grandparents. And those are moments and experiences that I couldn't relive as an adult because grandparents, as we all will, pass. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have gone back and had some of those moments that I had when I was little with my grandparents. And so I'm really grateful for that. And it's really cool because my parents and I are still really good friends, and we love to travel because my love for travel is absolutely handed down from them. My dad backpacked through Europe and wrote a book, Confessions of an Ignorant Traveler. You should all pick it up, available on Amazon. Lived in Israel on a kibbutz. My mom spent 6 months traveling through Europe before she and my dad got married. She traveled with a friend and then by herself. We love to travel together. And so one of the great things about living in Greece is they're both retired now. They'll come, spend time here, do some traveling. I'll meet them somewhere. They come back here. It's like I'm becoming friends with my parents on a different level than we ever were when I was young. And they were very concerned about actually keeping me alive and actually parenting me. I would say they're the biggest influence. And my mom likes to tell this story, kind of going back to our first question quickly. We first came to Greece when I was 13 years old. And my mom says the whole trip, every new place we would visit, every new family member we would meet, I would always say, thank you so much for bringing me here. Thank you so much for bringing me here. I remember coming to Greece and feeling like I'm half a world away from where I grew up. And I feel like I belong. I see people who look like me. I see my cousin I've never met in the world, and she has my nose, hands down, has my nose. And I thought, this is crazy. And so in that moment, I felt at home in two places. And my parents raised me to understand that the world is so much bigger than where your 2 feet are right now. And there's so much beauty, and there's so much to learn, and there's always something new around every corner. And so much of who I am today is because of them. And they're my biggest influence, and I'm very, very grateful.
Aw.
Uh, we'll dub this
Aw.
episode "A Love Letter to Callie's Parents."
Oh, I love that, and it's so much unconditional love
Yeah,
and support, and I've got to meet them. They are so lovely.
I'm so lucky.
So adorable seeing you guys travel together.
Oh, we're just really good friends now.
Aw.
Yeah. What about you? Big influences or people that had just an impact on your life?
I mean, exactly what you said about parents. I
Mm.
mean, it's funny because I looking back, just the one thing you said about, the experiences they gave you. It's funny when you're a kid how sometimes there's that like comparison, like, oh, like we weren't the family that like jetted off to Hawaii.
Mhm.
I'd see different parents and friends do all these amazing things. I'm like, why don't we do that? But then as you get old, you get more perspective.
Yeah.
And the things we did, like time in nature, like traveling throughout California, like it's such rich. And this is about the time together. So anyhow, just saying that, like definitely can't say enough about my parents because absolutely they've given me so much privilege and a leg up in this life to be able to
Mhm.
have had the experiences that I've had. I mean, yeah, the love story is so wrapped into so many different layers, but I also think my time in Argentina that I chose to live with a host family. And so they have become my adopted family there that I still keep in touch with. And the two of them are just, Susie and Hugo are just, they are love. Their relationship was beautiful. They just welcomed me into their home, and we just would have these conversations sitting around the dining room table. And of course, it's so Latin and even Greek to just sit around a table for hours and hours as you eat. But just all the conversations about life and love, just really like they poured so much into me, whether or not they realized it. But I took away so much into kind of like life philosophies. And it was just a real pivotal point in my life for sure. And then another person I definitely have to give a shout out to is Suzanne Conrad. She is the founder of Lightyear Leadership. She has been a dear mentor of mine since like 10 plus years. I got to meet her when I worked at Lululemon. And, really her program is all about like helping you really like go after creating the life that you love and that you desire and that you deserve. And at the core of that was really principles, of course, being able to kind of do that to create a vision for yourself, to be able to look at your life and the legacy that I've come from, and what are the things that I want to carry with me, and what do I need to maybe let fall away.
Mm.
And in that journey, there was another deeper layer of finding love in the romantic sense of my husband, but it was because I did the work to love myself first.
Oh, such a great topic to discuss.
And we'll get there. Yeah, so Suzanne has given me, just so many tools that really empowered me essentially to, I keep kind of going back to saying being in the driver's seat of my own life, but it really is like an awakening and knowing that there are tools and mindsets and things that I can really that actually are inside of me. And I think that's the biggest lesson versus always looking for external validation or thinking that somebody else has the answers. It just really kind of comes back to like your own knowing. And I
Mhm.
think that is something that's huge because things will constantly, as we talked about, shift and change.
Yeah.
And so coming back to your own knowing, there's nothing more powerful than that. And your own wisdom, like you talked about too, making decisions from that place.
Oh, yeah. I I feel like that's one thing that you sort of come to trust more with age is this feeling that you have, your intuition or the gut instinct. You start to realize that it is actually a thing. And the more that you are in tune with who you are and what you want, and the more that you are in your body, I think the more you learn to trust that feeling.
Mhm. 100%.
It's such a really powerful tool to be able to use.
Yeah. And I know I mentioned I kind of dropped in future. I'm curious, like when you think about the future, what are any hopes that come up for you?
Wow.
Or where do you want life maybe to go from here?
Great question. Mm, for me, I'd love to have kids one day because I think I've been given so many incredible lessons in life that I would love to pass on. And if, okay, for some reason I don't have kids, I have 5 nieces and nephews. I have 2 goddaughters. I can pass these lessons on to them, and I do every day, and I think about them and so many of the decisions I make in life are made with them in the back of my mind to think, we see all this stuff on Instagram about the cool aunt who travels the world. And that's great, but I think we have to look a little deeper. It isn't so much about being the cool aunt. It's allowing the children who are coming up now to realize that there are so many paths to happiness.
Mm.
So when I think of the future and I think of kind of what I want in life, my hope is that we raise a generation that is more self-assured in their own ability to make good decisions and to walk a path that feels authentic to them.
Mm.
That's what I want, because then I think if we're raising children to become adults who are good citizens and who spend time thinking about themselves and in a introspective way, not a selfish way, then I think so many of the things that we don't like in life, in the world, on a global perspective, I think we can mitigate some of that. And so for me, the future looks like a place where the lessons it's taken me 37 years to learn are things that we can impart to a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, so that some of the really awkward, terrible decisions that we made coming up are things that they kind of know intuitively.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think for me, when I think about the future, you embraced it so well about children, and it is like it's just a hope for humanity that
Yes.
we find our way. Like, technology and AI, of course, is like this thing everybody's like, oh, like, and the climate change, it's like things that feel like really frightening. And almost if you can get caught too much in the dread of it, it really can bring us down. And the hope I have and the vision I have is that we all find our way in humanity and come back to that. And we have to live how to more thoughtfully live in a world, coexist beside these things, and just find new ways to regenerate and to really help our climate.
Mm.
And not only from nature, but also our humanity, how to find that again and how to bring more compassion into the world. And so, yeah, mine's kind of large scale. And I do sometimes question, where and what I'm doing, does that fit in the world? And I think it goes back to like mentoring and,
Mm-hmm.
and also not forgetting when you talked about your nieces and nephews and potential future children, is like, it's of course you could spend time with them and influence them, but it's also, they notice what we do and what we don't do and what we say and what we don't say. So it's like we're always being watched. And so are we good citizens? Are we good role models in the world? And
Yeah,
so,
this idea of being a steward of the
yeah,
things you've been given
yes,
and
that
making sure
resonates.
that you're doing the things that you need to be doing.
Yeah, and it can feel so, it's empowering right now as I'm talking to you, and then there are other times I'm like, "Oh my god, it's so overwhelming. How do I do it all?" But
True.
reminding myself over and over again, and other, friends and mentors remind me that too. It's like it's not all for you to do. But it can feel that way sometimes. And also reminding myself that like even that little drop in the bucket makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so it comes back to that too.
Ugh, I just love our conversation so much.
Oh, me too. I always feel so good afterwards.
Me too. And I'm so happy to be sharing these sorts of conversations with other people now. We've talked about this. I don't think I would be here doing a podcast if it weren't for the fact that we are doing it together. I enjoy things so much more when sharing it with friends. I know this is probably something that many people feel, but I'm really grateful to share this experience with you. And I cannot wait to see where we go from here.
Aw, same. I'm really proud of us for doing this together. As we wrap up another episode of Biscuits and Sunshine, we want to thank Alex with Distance Sport Audio for the audio/technical expertise. He also made our theme song, so lots of appreciation there. And thank you for being with us on another episode. We hope that you're enjoying this as much as we are.
Science fiction writer Douglas Adams once wrote, "I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I've ended up where I needed to be." This week, I hope that you're able to give yourself grace and see that even if you're not where you expected, you've still worked really hard to get to where you are, and that's something worth celebrating. Next week, we'll talk about the changing seasons and how it provides a perfect opportunity to reflect and revise.
And if you love what we're serving up, be sure to subscribe, rate, and follow us on Instagram. This is Biscuits and Sunshine with Callie and Landra.